Hey there friends, welcome back to another video. This is a quick one. In this one we'll be looking at TJX. TJX is looking like it's breaking above this 70 price level and there seems to be signs of unusual option activity. I covered this post by John Najarian, the options trader on CNBC, and it looks like there's big volume going for these 70 calls in the April expirations. So potentially investors are thinking that the price of the stock will go above 70 sometime between now and April. So when we look at these contracts, we see that the sentiment is pretty bullish. In fact, based on this option activity, it looks like 84% of the total options are calls, with only 15% being put. And when we look at the Market Chameleon website, we also see that this is in fact the case. So there's pretty strong optimistic sentiment around TJX. And when we think about kind of what's been going on with some of these companies, I think that potentially what could be driving this is some of the return from the pandemic stocks, or I think there's a better word for it actually, but these stocks that will benefit once some of this COVID news starts to fade away. And I think TJX is looking like one of those that is just poised to benefit from the return back to a sense of normal. And so looking at the option chain, as shown in the video, it looks like most of the volume is being opened up for this 70 strike price in the April timeframe. So you can tell just kind of stands out this 19,000 volume in comparison to some of these like 4,000, 9,000, and 2,000 volume in these other strike price or expiration timeframes. So this 19,000 is a good sign that investors are kind of piling into the specific expiration. So you can see that here as well. In bar chart, just another illustration of it. There's a large volume of buying of these strikes in the April 16th expiration. So when we look at what that translates to into actual prices, I guess you can say, the total play of this would be roughly 6.4 million in this specific trade. So that's a big amount right there, and a large order that pretty much just got filled to get into this name, so potentially could have some upside. Now when we are considering whether or not to enter this trade or follow this trade, we also want to look at some technical analysis to see whether or not it is likely that the stock could hit the price or the strike price that investors think it will by that specific time frame. And when we look at the chart for TJX, I sort of drew a few lines here, and it looks a little bit busy, but bear with me for a little bit. But just kind of at a glance, we can see this 70 level again that we were talking about acting as a level of resistance. If the stock were to break this, we could see some upside. And on the downside or support levels, we see this 64 level being kind of like a key level where it's hit these baselines here, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. So these red lines here that I drew are really kind of showing this upward trend and consolidation of TJX. So you can see that this 64-ish roughly level was hit here, and then this other level around, I guess, 50 touched the bottom of this red line here again previously. So it looks like TJX just came back and touched this level or the base of this line again. So there's potential that there could be some bounce to the upside, or could be some consolidation and potentially still some more room to go back down to hit these levels again. But if it does play out the way that investors think it will, there could be some good potential to the upside. Another thing to note is that TJX also is expecting to release its earnings, I believe, February 24th. So that could come into play here as we look into these April expiration timeframes. So, with that being said, quick summary of kind of the trade idea that is being shown by this unusual option activity would be to kind of follow the smart money in this one, I guess. Looking at the April 16th expiration for the 70 call strike price, and the entry point here that will be kind of key will be to come in above with with a stock trading above this 68.97, which is the pivot point based on historical pricing data from bar chart. So we can see that this pivot point, I think I lost it over here. It was 68.97 right here. So this pivot point, if we go to the upside, we could definitely see it reaching these levels of resistance, as we saw through the analysis, as it could be consolidating up here. But on the downside, could also be hitting these levels of support. So with that being said, there also is a potential to go with the put options. If the conditions of the market turn bearish, then there's definitely some room for consolidation, and could see the stock hitting these this specific line here, potentially anywhere around these price levels, I guess 66, 67, 68, even 70 up here if it goes up and then comes back down. So there's potential there for the put side as well. So that would be another interesting play. In my opinion, I think if the conditions turn somewhat bearish, there's probably higher probability to get profits if you're looking at the short-term put options, since the analysis kind of indicates that the probability will be higher that the stock will go up. So there's good potential there, on the upside and the downside. So it could go either way. Definitely we'll have to monitor the market conditions to see what happens. But anyways, that's the trade idea. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.